Another erroneous thought out there is that if they really wanted to harm themselves, then they won't talk about it. As if to say that talk is cheap. That is a real challenge when we even allow that kind of thinking pattern. Because for many who have suicidal thoughts, it's not that they want to have a suicidal thought, it's that the emotional pain is so challenging, psychologically exhausting, that they want the pain to get better and they want to find a way to stop the pain, and they're looking for an outlet. Let me stop here and say that there are many options besides suicide. But for many of you that are suffering, you haven't had the opportunity, the support to be able to explore those options. Believe me, there are those options. But the fact that you don't see them yet does not mean that they do not exist. Another thing that I hear often is that the person who is going through emotional pain has no right to be that unhappy because so many good things are happening around them. Maybe they live in a nice house, or maybe they have a spouse who has a good job, or maybe they have healthy children. It's shaming the person who is suffering and making them feel guilty. We're also making the mistake of comparing people or circumstances in a superficial way. The fact that a person lives in a very nice house and they have a good job and they're gifted does not mean that they have not suffered emotional pain or that their pain is not deep. We need to be very careful about jumping to conclusions about what the person appears to be outwardly. Many people who appear strong and competent outwardly are suffering. And because we judge them to be superior or perfect, they are ashamed of talking about the pain. And unfortunately, in some cases, we only find out how depressed they are after they have committed suicide and completed suicide, or after they have attempted suicide. We want to make sure that we don't make people feel guilty. Another statement that we put out there that is erroneous is they didn't think about anybody else. That's why they did it, they're selfish. That is not the case. Many people who have suicidal thoughts, who are suffering emotionally, are worried about being a burden to their family. They don't like that they're not able to do for their family what they want to do. And they want to be a person that supports the family rather somebody that is being cared for. They do think about their loved ones. They do think about not being able to be their best. And many patients will tell me, if I was no longer here, I don't know that anybody, if I was no longer here, they wouldn't have to take care of me, or they can then take care of themselves. The person who is suffering emotionally already has a lot of guilt, and they're worried about how they're perceived. So please, let's drop that erroneous narrative. It is not true that the person who has suicidal thoughts is not thinking about others. We also want to talk about, what about those who go to church? I am one person that attends church on a regular basis. and I subscribe to the Christian faith. I'm committed to the Christian faith. I have observed many people who read the Bible, or maybe who have other religions, talk about suicide in ways that may be difficult to detect. They talk about God and what they want God to do for them, but they talk about God in a way to ask God or desire God to bring an end to their lives. It might be deceptive when you hear somebody say, I want Jesus to come soon. It might be deceptive to think that, it might be deceptive in a way, because then you might think, this person has been really religious. They want Jesus to come soon. But you gotta be careful, because that person could be suffering emotionally, or they could be thinking about suicide. It is not wrong to desire Jesus to come soon, but it would be wrong to desire Jesus to come soon and not think about taking care of things that need to be taken care of, not wanting to plan for the future, not having positive plans for the future. If that person is praying for Jesus to come soon and they're healthy, they'll be praying for things around them to improve. They'll be praying for them to be successful in their lives now as they anticipate the coming of Jesus. It is possible for a person to use religious language to talk about God and be severely depressed and to be suffering emotionally. They may come to church a lot and express a lot of tears, crying in the place of prayer. Nothing wrong with having an emotional experience, but let us watch such people, because they may be using this religious experience in a way as an outlet, but it's an outlet that is unhealthy, because they're thinking of leaving this world even though they're talking about God. Having religious affiliation and believing in God does not mean that you're weak if you're depressed. If you look through the Bible, many people who had a relationship with God also suffered emotionally. My goal then as a therapist, when I'm working with a person from the Christian faith or any other faith, is to support them in engaging their faith, to see themselves as a person that is loved by God and a person that looks to the future, to leave this world in the future, not to leave this world now. And help them to see that God is engaged and connected with them in their pain. I help them to no longer use religion and their faith to keep this suicidality and suicidal thoughts covered up. We take the shame away from it and encourage them to see that God is so close to them in their pain.